So, moving back to this kind of list of things that, I want to hopefully breed is, obviously, weirdly enough, do you know that I've never bred monitor lizards? Not one in my life.
That's so crazy to me because
and we've kept so many different things. And I've been keeping monitors since I was young.
Right.
But I've never even tried to breed them. As a matter of fact, when I had the albino savannas years ago, what ended up happening was I had them for about a year and a half, got them to adulthood, and then Pro Exotics, which ultimately turned into Ship Your Reptiles.
Okay.
They were like one of the monitor. There was like 3 monitor experts. There was a place called Rare Earth. A guy named Joe Lewis ran that. There was a guy named Frank Reedus, who's, again, a legend in the business. Frank Reedus. No one knows who Frank Reedus is. But
I haven't even heard that name
Frank
until right
Reedus
now.
bred Parenti monitors. He bred lace monitors. He was responsible for so much. I mean, now don't get me wrong. I've known Frank since I was 18 years old. He's an older guy. And Frank thinks he's also the best guy in the world. So Frank, to talk to Frank, you would very quickly realize that he thinks he knows more than you. And that's fine. I loved Frank and I respected Frank tremendously. I'd love to get a guy like Frank Reedus on the podcast because his knowledge would blow you away.
Oh my God.
As a matter of fact, for the longest time, there was something that they called Reedus racks. And Reedus racks were, or Reedus stacks, I'm sorry, Reedus stacks. Reedus stacks were stacks that monitor keepers would keep in their cages. And Frank Reedus came up with the design for them because it was a heat gradient thing,
Oh, okay, I get you.
And for years, that was like the standard of keeping monitors was these Reedus stacks. Anyways, Pro Exotics was another. Frank was more interested in the rare monitors, the Lacey's and the Parentis and the Gould's monitors and on and on.
Heard of those.
And Robin and Chad from Pro Exotics were breeding more like Ackie monitors, like in big numbers. They were breeding a lot of different things. So they really showed interest in these Savannah monitors. I had never bred Savannah monitors. And quite frankly, I'm going to be totally honest. I had 5 albinos. Let me just tell the story of the albino.
Yeah, please do.
So it is weird. One day I literally was like, and I was dealing in West Africa a ton, right? Had tons of people in West Africa that I was doing business with ball pythons. And I thought, I want an albino or a leucistic, what they call Bach monitors. They're actually Savannah monitors, but they call them Bach monitors over there. So I emailed all my friends over in South and West Africa. And I said, if you come across any albino or leucistic Bach monitors this year, I want them. Legitimately, the next day, I get a picture of a baby albino Bach monitor. Literally the next day. And so I immediately call the guy up and I say, what's the deal with this? And he says, it's one hatched out of this clutch and he wants $15,000 for it. And I said, I'm buying it. Done.
Yeah.
Done. 4 or 5 days after I get it, there's 2 more. Now I have no choice but to buy them, right?
Yeah,
because
course.
I've got the one. I can't let anyone else buy it, so I have to send him $30,000 more.
Oh my God!
About 2 weeks later, there's 2 more.
Is he like pulling a Supreme move where he's just like
completely? I guarantee you, all 5 hatched out the same day.
Yeah, and he was like leaking them slowly.
100%. And he knew he can't. As a matter of fact, I think the last 2 I paid $20,000 a piece for because he's like, oh well, some people have offered me more money, and I think so. I ended up having close to $100,000 into these 5
That's so
lizards.
crazy.
And I raised them up for like a year and a half. They were pretty much adult size, and I just didn't like. I've got $100,000 into the only albino Bach monitors or Savannah monitors in the world, and I'm like, I can't. I don't want to take the risk of my first breeding ever, So Chad and Robin were really interested in them, and ultimately I worked a deal out where I said, I'm going to just send them to you guys for you guys to breed them. They had supposedly had some female captive born and raised Savannah monitors that they were waiting for this project and stuff like that. And so I sent them out there, and they were very, very good with what they did. And then, pretty much I just sent them, and like I've done with almost all my projects, once I send people, I don't really bug them. I don't go after them. I'm like, hey, what's going on? I want to just leave them alone, do your thing, and hopefully we're going to have some babies in the future. So like 6-8 months go by, and I touch base, and it's like, nah, they're doing all right, but haven't got any eggs, haven't seen some breeding action, but nothing, blah, blah. I'm like, okay. And then like a year goes by and I'm kind of just getting ghosted on it. Like I sent a couple emails off like, hey, what's going on? No response. And then, and this is, I don't mean to be negative and I'm not bitching, but Chad goes on a podcast or, it was,
talk show, yeah.
Blog show. It was a blog talk show at the time. It was like
Okay.
kind of, didn't even call them podcasting at the time. But, and literally he says, they brought up, they're like, hey, what's up with those albino monitors you got from BHB? And he's like, oh, they all died.
What?
So literally, I found out that all of my albino monitors died a year and a half after I sent them out from some other podcast, and I still to this day, never got a phone call. Now I'm still friends with Chad. Robin and me are dear friends.
Yeah, of course.
Even in some business relationships together, and I don't hold any grudge, but it did suck. It did suck. So now I've got, of course, Chicken Strip, the albino Nile monitor, and Ubasuku, the Nile monitor. And I'm going to try to breed them this next year. And I'm not sending them to anyone because I had 3. I had a male and 2 female melanistic Nile monitors I sent to another reptile expert, monitor breeder. And he 2 of the 3 died. And so I ended up getting, and what was funny is he had them over a year, and then he blamed me for them dying.
And you're like, what?
And I was just like, oh my gosh, how is it my fault that you had an animal for over a year and a half and they died, and it's my fault?
Yeah.
And again, I actually reached out to this guy because someone told me, like, hey, I heard this podcast. This was just like a year and a half ago. He goes, yeah, I hear this podcast, and the guy said that they died because of you. And so I reached out to him. I'm like, why are you saying it's my fault that you killed my monitor? I didn't blame him. I wasn't mad at him. I didn't say he owed me. I never talked shit about him or anything. And he literally texts back. He's like, oh, they took it out of context. I said, dude, I listened to it.
I watched it. Yeah.
I listened to it, and you said, yeah, Brian really didn't raise him right. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, you can't blame somebody a year and a half after that's on you, baby.
And I sent them to them when they were only like a year old. I didn't do anything to those animals. We did diets,
but it's also like, imagine if you had a rescue animal, right? Yeah. Like, all right, so Jay, he has the Taz's brother, right? Mm-hmm. And when he got it, didn't look great. Right, but now it looks awesome. I seen him in a picture the other day, and it looks great. And it hasn't even been a couple months.
Yeah. Well, like I said, and I don't mean to go negative on either one of those 2 situations. I mean, I lost a lot in both those situations, and I never talked shit about either one of them.
Either.
And still to this day, I'm not blaming them for killing them or them dying.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened, but it wasn't my fault.
Yeah, for sure it wasn't.
I know that for a fact. It wasn't my fault.
I literally didn't touch him.
and then that just goes to show we got Ubasuku back, the one of the 3, and she's thriving 2 years later.
Exactly.
2.5 years
well, that's
later,
my point, is that it takes so little time to fix an animal, and it takes so little time to mess up an animal.
Yeah, and when I got Ubasuku back, other than being extremely mean, she was in great shape.
Yeah.
I mean, she was in she was in good shape. So it wasn't like the guy didn't know how to take care of monitors, but it was just weird that he would blame me. So anyways, so hopefully this year I can breed, not this year, but next year in 2021-2022 season, hopefully Chicken Strip, the albino Nile monitor, will be big enough we can breed him to Ubasuku.
Yeah, we're gonna be flipping.
Yeah,
how long? They take a long time to like lay and hatch, right?
Yeah, they do. The laying isn't that long, but the hatch rate is pretty long, and obviously they can have 2 or 3 clutches in a year too. So
wow, okay.
Dude, so we'll be if we are so lucky, we're gonna be raising up a lot of Nile monitors.
I'll take one for sure.
We'll literally be like, she could have 12, 15 eggs, and she could have 2 or 3 clutches, so she could produce 40 babies. We're going to have to raise every single one of those up
to breed
and breed them back, and that's going to take 3 years, 4 years, whatever the case is, and we're going to have 40 adult Nile monitors. We're going to have a whole new building just for Nile monitors.
But imagine how cool to have those hets and then eventually the
the albino, to produce albinos, melanistics, and snows
for zoos all over the place.
Or for people. I mean, it's just like I mean, it's going to be pretty wild. And now, don't get me wrong. I mean, you've got the albino waters and the melanistic waters that people are going to be doing. There are already double hets out there. So we'll be, but I think the albino Nile looks a lot different than the albino water.
Oh, for sure. I mean, even I was gonna say the albino, like Chicken Strip, looks so crazy.
It's a good albino. It's a good albino monitor. I mean, that's a true albino.
I mean, the colors in it are flaring.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I want a T-negative albino water monitor. I want to get one this year. They're beautiful. They're just not that bright orange, flaming hot eyes, and stuff like that.
Damn, son.
Can we rail this in?